You guys, once again, I thought I was live and I've been sitting here talking to everybody for 2 minutes and I wasn't. So here we go. We're going to start all over again. Hello, my friends. I'm very excited to see you. I've been sitting here laughing to myself. And I had wonderful music playing, thinking that we were live and we were not. So in any event, here we are. Welcome. It's Resistance Live for the 15th of February. It is an absolutely chaotic morning. I cannot tell you guys, I think this is possibly the craziest day of legal developments that we have seen in the entire era of Trump since he came down the escalator. I don't even know, you guys. It's been an absolutely bonkers morning. And literally right up until 30 seconds before I thought I hit the live button for the first time, we were watching what is still ongoing in Fulton County, which, by the way, is a joke. But we're going to talk more about that in a couple of minutes. Let's just do the preliminaries. I am coming to you, as always, today from occupied Tongva territory here in Southern California. Today, I am wearing a black turtleneck sweater. I got a haircut yesterday, so I've got this funky new little Italian bob thing going on. My hair is down. I have pink skin. I have green eyes. I'm a dirty blonde-haired woman. I'm sitting in front of my big green plant and my big cushy office chair in my office. And I am stoked that you're here. It is a very, very big day, all right? So let's start with the obvious first and foremost, which is that there was a hearing in New York City this morning concerning the potential criminal trial of Donald Trump for allegations related to his election interference by filing false documents concerning the payoffs to Stormy Daniels and others. There's also a Playboy Playmate in the mix to influence the 2016 election. He is facing 34 felony counts. The hearing this morning was to determine if he was going to stand trial for felonies in New York City. And the answer to that is unequivocally yes. And we have a hard trial date of March 25th. Jury selection is going to start on March 25th. One of the things that happened this morning in this courtroom was a debate over the jury questionnaire. As always, Trump's lawyers are jokers, just absolute jokers, just relentless jokers. And there were some truly hilarious moments this morning in the courtroom in New York City where, for instance, Trump's lawyers made an argument that the case should be indefinitely delayed because there was so much media attention on it. To which the judge said, when is there not going to be media attention on this case? April? May? When? The other bit of breaking news that came out this morning that was really significant in the New York City case is that the New York City judge actually conferred with Judge Chutkan in the district court for the District of Columbia, where, by the way, more on this in a minute, we're waiting for a ruling on the Supreme Court related to absolute immunity that could send that case back down to her courtroom for trial. The judge in New York City conferred with Judge Chutkan, said, do you have anything on your trial docket that at the moment would prevent us from going forward with trial in New York City on March 24th? Judge Chutkan said, nope. And the judge in New York City said, fine, we'll claim the trial date. We're going to trial. So this is official. And everybody better buckle TF up because we are going to be in trial literally a month and 10 days from now. So, I got to remind you all, if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, you're going to want to do it. If you've not yet hit the like button on this broadcast, you're going to want to do it. And if you want to be able to ask me questions in advance of every broadcast, including when we're live at trial, you're going to want to become a paid subscriber at patreon.com/resistance-live for as little as $2 a month. Subscriptions go all the way up to $100 a month. But you're going to want to do that. Because I'm just going to tell you all right now that, in addition to these Q&A broadcasts every day, there's going to be a lot more breaking broadcasts coming up. I mean, I think it's kind of a given at this point, but I don't know how I or any other legal commentator is going to be able to sum up what's going to be taking place here starting on March 25th and honestly, way before that, in one lone broadcast a day. These things are about to get very, very intense for Donald Trump. All right. So I have to warn you all that as I mentioned here previously, one of the things that you're going to have to expect now is that Trump is really going to go down the hole. And what I mean by that is that we're going to see an enormous and very rapid decompensation in public. He literally left this hearing this morning in New York City and started ranting to television cameras outside the courtroom about NATO and the payment of NATO members for who knows what. it's going to get very, very rough. All right. And I want folks to just be conscious of the fact that when you see him getting crazier and crazier in public, that is what happens to narcissists when real accountability comes knocking. And real accountability is coming knocking now. All right. For those who are asking questions about the length of the trial process in New York City, first and foremost, we already have a model for how jury selection is going to take place. One of the things that happened in the courtroom this morning in New York City was that the judge in the New York City case said that they already had a model for jury selection based on what Judge Kaplan in the Southern District of New York had done in the E. Jean Carroll case. There was a whole jury questionnaire there, a whole series of questions. One of the things that they're doing and that took place this morning in the courtroom was they're modeling the jury selection questions that are going to be used in the criminal case in New York City on what Judge Kaplan did in the Southern District of New York. No wheel needs to be reinvented. Trump's lawyers actually said, we want to reinvent the wheel. And the New York City judge was like, sit down. So we're at a place right now where the jury selection process is going to be very tight. There's already a model for this. I have to remind everybody the E. Jean Carroll case was a week from start to finish in January, 7 days. The jury selection process is going to be very quick. And the estimate here is that this trial is not going to take any longer than a month. So I just got to tell you all, my birthday is April 25th. It would not surprise me one bit to see a conviction of Donald Trump around my birthday. So we're going to see a trial, and I'm just going to call it right now, a conviction of Donald Trump in New York City, definitely by the beginning of May. And I just have to say that, you know, everybody should just really get prepared because I don't even know how to put it any differently than this. It is going to be a very wild ride between now and then in terms of breaking news, in terms of Trump's own behavior. And this is just one case. All right. So that's one thing that's happening this morning. The other thing that's happening this morning is there is this ongoing evidentiary hearing. I have to correct everyone. This is not a trial. An ongoing evidentiary hearing about the relationship between Fani Willis and Nathan Wade and whether or not it had any impact on Donald Trump's prosecution and the prosecution of his co-defendants. This hearing has been an absolute farce. Like, I don't know how to put it any clearer to you all. They've got nothing. And let me just tell you how this has gone. The attorneys for Michael Roman, a woman by the name of Ashley Merchant, is the attorney who is questioning witnesses this morning on behalf of Michael Roman, who, by the way, is like the dirty deeds oppo co-defendant of Donald Trump. She is asking questions of what is now 3 witnesses concerning whether or not there was any financial benefit to Nathan Wade or Fani Willis as a result of their consensual adult relationship. All right. First witness was Nathan Wade's divorce attorney, who has attorney-client privilege with Nathan Wade. And Ashley Merchant, the attorney, based her entire claim of relevance on the idea that this witness was somehow going to establish that there had been a relationship between Fani Willis and Nathan Wade preceding the beginning of Nathan Wade's employment with the district attorney's office. Well, they can't get that evidence because the Bar Association of Georgia has barred his divorce attorney from testifying about anything that he knows because attorney-client privilege would be breached otherwise. So the other thing I'm just going to say here is that my bet is that there's not really anything to talk about, that there's no there, and we'll say more about that in a minute. But everything that they hung their case on with this first witness literally ended with one question, because the ethics codes of Georgia do not allow for attorney-client privilege to be violated, even when you're the attorney for a co-defendant of Donald Trump. Okay. The second witness here was a quote unquote friend of Fani Willis. Turns out this friend is actually a disgruntled former employee of the district attorney's office who was forced to choose between resigning or being fired by Fani Willis for courtroom misconduct. She testified that she was told by Fani Willis that their relationship started in 2019 and that she saw conduct between the two of them, like hugs and like a kiss. And, you know, again, I have to say, like, when I was an attorney, there were plenty of times where in coming and going from meetings with my co-counsel, I would like embrace people. Sometimes if they were people you'd work with for a time, you would give them a kiss on the cheek. Nothing about this that is at all improper. And on top of it, she's compromised. Like, she actually fell apart quite quickly on cross-examination, couldn't remember facts, wasn't sure about certain things that she had previously testified to, wouldn't admit that she had been challenged multiple times on her job performance by Fani Willis's office, or that she had been forced to resign. That's their second alleged shocking bombshell witness. All right. Now they've got Nathan Wade on the stand. And the testimony of Nathan Wade, I mean, I have to tell you, I said this a few minutes ago on Threads, and I am going to repeat it here. I hope Ashley Merchant's career was worth it, because this questioning of Nathan Wade is so despicable and so irrelevant that I don't see how it doesn't blow back on the attorney herself. They're literally asking questions about, like, lunch dates that Nathan Wade and Fani Willis had, where they would drive to a place in Tennessee to have a quiet lunch because she's under such scrutiny on the basis of the prosecution that she needed an hour away to take a break from all of the media attention. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing scandalous about it. Literally nothing that impacts the prosecution of Donald Trump or whether or not he committed crimes to try to overthrow the 2020 election, or for that matter, whether or not Michael Roman did. Okay. Literally nothing here that's remotely scandalous. Yes, they took trips together as a couple. They split expenses like basically every modern couple does. He would pay for certain things. She would pay him back. She would pay for certain things. He would pay her back. When they went to Napa Valley together on a brief trip, he paid for the hotel. She paid for the excursions. I mean, this is stupid. It's just like the dumbest thing you've ever seen. It has like no bearing whatsoever on whether or not there was any improper conduct. There's no evidence of kickbacks. He testified that his pay from the district attorney's office has gone into the operating account of his law firm. There's literally nothing improper about anything that has been testified to here. And the whole thing is a sham. It's just like, it is the most just sordid, salacious, shiny object distraction from the attempt to overthrow the votes of the Georgia Democrats who voted to elect Joe Biden, all of the interference that went underway, everything having to do with the fraudulent elector slate. Like, this is a total nothing burger. And I have to say, like, watching it is really hard because it is so clownish and the lawyering is so obscenely poor that even from my perspective as, an attorney, someone, albeit who hasn't practiced for a while now, but like, I was a trial attorney and I would be ashamed to get up and ask the kind of questions that have been asked in this environment, pursue lines of questioning that are just so obviously like salacious and designed to kind of like pry into somebody's personal life in their bedroom. And like, I mean, it's just there's no allegation here of any conflict of interest. And so to me, this is, it's just a sham. It's a mockery of the trial process, and it's a total waste of time. So Nathan Wade has held up very well on examination. He's unflappable. He's very clearly taking time to think, to make sure he's telling the truth. He's disclosed things that anybody else in this situation would probably be very uncomfortable disclosing. Like, he took a cruise with his mom and Fani Willis for a couple of days. I mean, like, has no bearing on any of this, none of it. And he's testified under oath, in very truthfully, by the way, that the relationship didn't start until months after he was hired, and that there hasn't been any financial misconduct. So, this is all very much like a nothing burger. And I have to say that Judge McAfee, very unflappable on the bench. He's given Attorney Merchant a lot of room here to explore things that are totally irrelevant, largely, in my opinion, so that there's no chance of this ever being overturned on appeal. He's letting her delve into all sorts of things that are absolutely not directly relevant. There's also been minimal objections from the district attorney's office's attorney, Fani Willis's attorney. They're just letting her run with this. And, I got to tell you, I don't think this is going to turn into anything at all. Even McAfee, with the length that he's allowing them to go, it has pointed out that there are a number of lines of questioning that she's engaged in so far that have no bearing whatsoever on anything having to do with this case. So I'm not, I'm disgusted by it. Do I think there's any real threat here? No. I mean, unless there's some bombshell in the remaining part of the hearing. Fani Willis and Nathan Wade were dating. Big whoop. No financial misconduct, no kickbacks, no preferential treatment. The relationship started after he was hired. Their only witness that says the contrary is someone who Fani Willis forced into retirement. And, it's nonsense. Like, it's just nonsense. And, by the way, MAGA is like way too obsessed with what people are doing in their own bedrooms. All of this is so stupid. So I'm not concerned, and something may change. There may be additional testimony. Never say never, but I got to tell you, from where this is right now, this is a clown show and a dumpster fire. And I hope Ashley Merchant's career was worth it, because I don't know who would hire her after this. That's just me. All right. I also just have to say that none of this has any bearing on trial dates, on the evidence against Donald Trump, the evidence against any of the other co-defendants, nothing. This is all just a total red herring, wild goose chase, literally a wild goose chase, to the point that literally right before I came on the air, Judge McAfee was like, I'm going to let you ask this questions about this for 2 more minutes. And then we're done with this line of questioning. There's just nothing there. And, they did make this claim, as someone is pointing out, that he's made $300,000 from the district attorney's office. That money, I just have to point out to everyone, has gone into his law firm's partnership accounts. And so what that means is that money, for those of you who don't know how law partnership works, that money is divided up among the law partners in his law firm. It's not like Nathan Wade himself is making $300,000 off of the district attorney's office. His law firm makes that money. It gets divided among the partners based on their partnership's share. He gets paid a salary out of the law firm, just like every other attorney does. And then at the end of the year, they figure out what's left over, and they divide the profits based on their partnership share. It's not his money. It's not his money. So all of this is truly shameful. And I hope everybody sees it for what it is, and that's leaving aside everything having to do with the absolute overt racism of this. I mean, it's disgusting. It's an attempt to shame Fani Willis for having a relationship, for being, a Black woman district attorney with ovaries of steel, who had the nerve to actually take it to Donald Trump, and they're going to try to shame her for having a romance. I mean, it's trash. It's just absolute trash. Okay. We had questions on the Patreon feed this morning about the Supreme Court, because one of the things that has still happened also in the last 24 hours, you all will remember that we were sitting here yesterday morning on this broadcast, and I said that I didn't think Jack Smith was going to take until Tuesday to file his opposition brief. He filed it yesterday afternoon. 48 hours. It took him 48 hours to file his opposition brief to the motion to stay the case that Donald Trump filed in front of the Supreme Court. And I read it. I live commented on it on Threads. You can all go find that, but it's an incredibly well-written brief. Quite contrary to Trump's brief, which opened, as we all know, with a quote from Yogi Berra's online quote museum. The brief from Jack Smith opened with the standards that have to be applied by the Supreme Court in determining whether or not they're going to issue a stay of the case. And the brief went further than that to say that not only should the court deny the stay, but it should also take the opportunity to treat this application as a writ of certiorari and deny appellate review. So he has teed it up so that the Supreme Court, should it choose to do so, can not only deny the stay, but also deny appeal and send the whole thing right back down to Judge Chutkan's courtroom, in which case we'll be back on target for a trial in Judge Chutkan's courtroom right around mid-May. So there will be no overlap with the case in New York City. All of this is moving along quite well. All right. So here's how this works inside the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has what are called judicial conference days. And those are days where the justices get together and they decide whether or not they're going to take certain cases, if there are writs that they can rule on very quickly, or decisions that are obvious, they're per curiam, much like the decision that was issued out of the DC Circuit Court, where they don't have to actually write a big opinion about it and it's unanimous. They can just issue an opinion on that day. Opinions don't usually drop on judicial conference days, but it could happen here. There's a judicial conference day scheduled for, wait for it, tomorrow. So it is entirely possible, not totally likely. I tend to agree with the other legal commentators who think we may be waiting for something on this next week, but it's possible. We could get a ruling from the Supreme Court tomorrow denying the stay and denying a writ of certiorari and sending the entire case back down to Judge Chutkan because Donald Trump doesn't have absolute presidential immunity. So we're at a point right now where the walls are closing in on Donald Trump. And I have said, and I am so far not alone in this, that I don't see any way that this Supreme Court rules in favor of Donald Trump on presidential immunity. Because if they do, I'm going to remind you all, of many examples that we have given on this broadcast, Joe Biden could literally round up everybody in the Republican Party and drop them in Guantanamo Bay and never be prosecuted for it. Or do other things. He could commit crimes on the lawn of the White House and never be prosecuted for it. All right. One of the things that I just want to say to everybody here, though, to keep in mind is that in the event that the Supreme Court does grant review, Jack Smith's team has asked for an extremely expedited schedule. 2 weeks to the opening brief, 1 week for an opposition brief, 5 days for reply, oral argument shortly thereafter. So even if the Supreme Court grants review, this whole thing's going to be over in a month. And I just got to tell you that I think that the strong likelihood here is that the Supreme Court is just simply going to deny the stay, is going to deny cert, and is going to send the whole thing back to Judge Chutkan. That is the rational choice, because even the far-right ideologues on the Supreme Court do not want to empower Joe Biden to engage in crimes as the president of the United States, because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So we're going to have to see how this all goes. And I have to remind everybody that, if the Supreme Court were to rule that way, the Supreme Court would be undercutting its own authority. Because if a president can do whatever he wants, our entire system of checks and balances is gone, right? Like, it's the end of democracy as we know it in America. And it, by the way, doesn't give the Supreme Court any review over anything that a president does, which has never been the case for the entire history of the United States. So we'll have to see, but we could have a ruling on that as soon as tomorrow, because the judicial conference is tomorrow morning at SCOTUS. So sit tight for that. Now, as if that wasn't enough, we're waiting to hear from Judge Engoron in the New York civil fraud case, who announced, as we talked about yesterday on the broadcast, that there's going to be a judgment entered in that case no later than tomorrow. I have to remind you all that, the maximum damages that were sought here by Letitia James were $370 million. I do not think it's going to be that high. I said to everybody yesterday, don't get your expectations set that it's going to be that high or higher, because we need to have a ruling that is not going to be reversed on appeal. Okay. But I think it is entirely likely that Trump's entire business empire comes to an end, that the judgment is at least 9 figures. We're talking $200 million. The evidence absolutely supported that at trial, no question. We also now have a situation where Alan Weisselberg is potentially pleading guilty to perjury. All of his testimony about valuations is going to get tossed out the window because he's an unreliable witness. And I don't think this is going to end well. So, it's a heck of a week. When I started this broadcast by saying I can't remember a day that's been this chaotic since Trump came down the escalator, like, I meant it. This is a wild, wild set of events right now. Okay, so all that said, I was planning on taking tomorrow off. And I think now what I'm going to try to do is have a broadcast sometime tomorrow morning. I'm going to wait until after Engoron's decision drops. If it happens to drop this afternoon, which, by the way, isn't out of the question, I don't know. I'll see what I can do. Okay. But I'm going to ask everybody to stay tuned both to my Patreon feed. Again, if you are not a subscriber over there, the fastest way to find out when I'm going to be broadcasting, when I'm off schedule, or if there's going to be an emergency broadcast, is over there, because you will literally get a notification in your email inbox when I announce the time of a looming broadcast. Again, subscriptions are as little as $2 a month. They go up from there, but that's as little as 10 cents a broadcast. So you can head on over there if you want to stay tuned for when I'm going to be live. And I will just remind everybody that I'm supposed to be away with my kids tomorrow. The format's not going to look like this. I'm going to be using my laptop or my phone. So just bear with me with the technological specs, but I'm going to do my best to be live tomorrow to provide analysis and review of all the judgments and everything else that are potentially going to drop tomorrow. All right. And in the interim, we still have this ongoing hearing in Fulton County, which may continue until tomorrow. Oh, yeah. Thanks for reminding me, Carol. By the way, there is another bit of breaking news from yesterday, which is that Russia apparently wants to put a nuclear weapon in space. And that's also leaving aside the fact that, 22 people were shot yesterday in Kansas City at the Super Bowl event. I think the only thing I want to say about the Russian threat is that Mike Johnson sent everybody home from the House of Representatives for a 2-week break after the fact that a massive national security issue was raised. And that tells us kind of everything that we need to know there. I also have to remind everybody that there is literally nothing that is coincidental about this when it comes to Ukraine. Because if we do not fund Ukraine, Putin gets to do whatever the hell he wants, because he's not going to have any pushback. And I have a lot more to say about that. I've talked about it more earlier this week, but that is where we are. And, you know, the other thing I'm just going to say right now is that if you are not yet doing work to elect Democrats in 2024, you need to get to it, because the only way we're going to get legitimate gun safety legislation in this country, including assault weapons bans and background checks and everything else that we desperately need in states like Missouri, where there's literally nothing, is by electing Democrats to the House of Representatives, flipping the House back to blue and getting legislation on the books. So it's incredibly important, like incredibly important, that you do not lose sight of the end game, even on days like this. All right. So stay tuned. I will make sure that I will make sure that I not only that I block trolls, but also that I keep you guys posted on when there's going to be a broadcast tomorrow. So please make sure that you are staying tuned. And I will be live at some point tomorrow. It may not be on the regular schedule, but it might. Please just, you know, buckle up. It's going to be a wild day. It already is a wild day. And tomorrow's going to be like even crazier. All right. Thanks to everybody for all of your support. As you all know, this film that I've been working on is premiering this week at the Santa Barbara International Film Festival. It's a very big deal. The filmmakers themselves have been on site at the film festival since Tuesday. There's a lot of news about that, but I just really want everybody to, for the meantime, I want to thank you all for your support for all of my ongoing work, including with regard to Joe Manchin and corruption and, you know, the Democratic Party in West Virginia, because the story is horrible, and the sacrifice of the people of West Virginia for Joe Manchin's own political and financial gain. But I will have more to say about that in the coming days. And I will catch you all here at some point tomorrow. If you have gotten anything out of this broadcast, please don't forget to hit the thumbs up. Please make sure that you share it with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe here, because it's going to be very, very busy on this channel between now and November. And it's going to be a lot of fun, but it's going to be very, very, very busy. All right. I will catch you all sometime tomorrow. Thanks for being here again. And gosh, enjoy the rest of this absolutely crazy day, my friends. I'll talk to you soon.